So, can you give us a bit of advice for students who are looking to become sports journalists? Where would they begin? What would your key advice be?
Well, I guess the industry, it's changing so fast. No one, if they're honest, could predict where it's going to be in 10 years. But when it comes to the requirements, the qualifications, the skills, what you need to get into it, I think it's very, very similar to what it's been in the days of hot metal or even earlier. So, obviously, a passion and enthusiasm for sport is very important, but let's face it, there's a lot of people who butchers, bakers, candlestick makers have that, so it's a lot more than that. It's the ability to write, the ability to watch sport translated onto paper or onto your computer, and just generally, when you're applying for jobs, to have a CV which isn't just about your qualifications. It's about showing how proactive you can be, whether it's work experience, having done articles for blogs or websites and that. Just showing that it's something you've got a passion for, not just the sport, but the writing of it as well.
And obviously there's a lot made of the kind of multimedia developments in journalism these days. You talk about the core skills.
Yeah.
Has the business changed that much? Has the role of the sports journalist changed a lot in the last few years, or is it much as it was?
Yes and no. I mean, the way your information is relayed changes, but the way you write something doesn't. So, maybe in the past when I first started, you would write it in a notepad, and then you'd go to copy, and you'd sit down the phone. Then, of course, it was Tandies, and then email and laptops, etc. So, but no, the core skills are very similar. Have a structure. Get a good intro, make sure your facts are right, have some good quotes, and I'm sure that will be the same, whatever the media of journalism is in 50 years' time as it is now.
In terms of that, bridging that gap between being an enthusiast and a professional, could you sort of explain what characterises that change? I mean, what are the most important kind of bits of advice in terms of becoming pro, if you like?
It's a good question. I think you've got to have a certain degree of expertise in a field. So if you're watching a football match, for argument's sake, you need to have. I've done a little bit of research. So if something significant happens, you can buttress your report with facts and statistics and things like that. Good turn of phrase, but of course that's the same in any form of journalism, in any form of writing, I guess. But it's the ability to be able to sum up a match in the first few paragraphs, make it as interesting to the reader as possible, to persuade that reader to carry on reading it, and to be able, I guess, to analyse. There's got to be, as well as writing factual stuff, there's got to be analysis in it, especially. If as a daily journalist rather than a Sunday, if I was doing a Monday match report, it's got to be very different from what's been in the Sundays. It's got to carry analysis. It's got to carry quotes, from players. So I think it's important to have a curious mind as well. When you're talking to people, ask the right questions. Of course, get on with people. Then, of course, there's the networking, getting contacts, because yes, you'll get a lot of your information from press conferences, from watching the action. You want to have a bit more of that, because football clubs aren't going to volunteer information about the players they're watching, for instance. So that's when you need networking skill. That can, they grow over the years.
And in terms of kind of what might be termed as soft skills, I suppose, like getting on the phone and building up those relationships, I'd imagine is that becoming even more important in the era of very carefully managed press offices and things like that?
Yeah, we are in the era in that. I mean, it's only 10, 12, 15 years ago when you could pick up a phone and speak to any player. These days, press officers, a lot's got to be done through press officers or agents, or even advertising agencies. But yes, I mean, obviously the interviewing skill is don't go in with both feet. If a side's lost 5-0, you've got to tread very carefully then and save your best questions until last, or a question which you think might offend someone or anger them. Don't have that as your first question. But I think that's something you just learn through experience.
And were you given any advice or any key tips that have steered you right, or is it all experience? Have you had
as my mum would have said, advice goes in one ear out of the other. No, I think you know, I've worked with some very, very good journalists, and there's an awful lot of advice that you try and use. You know, the enthusiasm is there, but it's always got to be an enthusiasm laced with cynicism in a way, because you know, not everything you're told you can take at face value. But no, I think the best bit of advice is, you know, don't take your job for granted. You've got to realise that you do have invariably have the best seat in the house, and you know, make the most of that.
Perfect.